the leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started. We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag because we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights. We're Americans. We fish the waters and we hunt the lands. We forge the steel with our own two hands. With what we've got, we do the best we can. We're Americans.
It's time now for the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show on K98 Talk. Now, here's Grouchy.
All right, good. Hold the glass tonight. We don't have time for that nonsense. We got a packed show. We're going to get this all. I know, but we don't have time for it tonight. I'm ticked off, and we're going to let it out. Before we get it rolling, though, we're going to open the phone lines. They're going to be open all night. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you agree or disagree, whether you hate me, whether you like me, feel free to call. It's 408-681-8255. Better bring your facts, though. That's 408-681-8255. Now, right off the bat, we're going to get going. We're going to talk about all the stupidity happening in this country right now. And it's the violent protests. It's the Congressional Black Communists. Yeah, I know you know them as the Congressional Black Caucus, but they are the Congressional Black Communists. We're going to talk about Obama and his plans. We're going to talk about the 10th Amendment a little bit, how this all ties together, every single bit of it. So without further ado, because as normal, I am well over prepared with notes that we will never get to tonight on the show. We're going to open up with an audio clip of the Congressional Black Caucus making their statement about the shootings and the need for reform in this country. So give a listen to this because we're about to tack right on to the end of it. Here we go.
We don't need to leave the Hill this week or any week without assuring the American people that we understand the problem of police misconduct in America. We understand the murders of innocent Black Americans. We get it. We understand the problems faced by our law enforcement officers, and I don't want to diminish that in this conversation today. We understand the problems faced by law enforcement officers, most of whom put on the uniform every day and serve and protect our communities. Republicans, what on earth why are you recalling and not giving us a debate on gun violence? Why not give it a hearing? Give us a debate. Give us an up or down vote on our legislation on gun violence. Why? Last night, while on the floor, we were advised that several hundred protesters were en route to the Capitol, demonstrating and protesting and exercising the First Amendment rights, their First Amendment rights, by demanding that we, as elected officials, protect their sons and daughters and their grandsons and granddaughters, their brothers and their sisters. At 10 p.m., the Congressional Black Caucus, along with other members from other caucuses, went outside of the Capitol at the West Front, and we met the demonstrators. We spoke to them, we embraced them, and we helped lead their march to the White House. They told us with unambiguous clarity that Black Lives Matter, that the movement is serious, it is organized, and they demand legislative action now, and that we don't leave this place until it's done. We applaud the demonstrators last night for telling us that the deaths in Baton Rouge and Falcon Heights give them the energy and determination they need to pull off the Band-Aid of the stain of irresponsible police killings in America. The 2 acts of murder this week that we all so sadly know must be addressed by law enforcement. It must be addressed by the Congress of the United States. If we fail to act, this will be a long, hot summer. In the rally audience last evening, a young lady held up a sign that read, "I wept more last night than I slept." End of quote. Colleagues, America is weeping. They are angry. They are frustrated. And Congress, and when I say Congress, I mean the Republicans in Congress, are refusing to address gun violence in America that targets Black men and Black women and Hispanic men and Hispanic women, and yes, even police officers. The Congressional Black Caucus is frustrated. You want to say we're mad? We're mad. We are determined to take our advocacy now to a higher level.
Okay, so that was Mr. Crap for Brains Butterfield, the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus. We're going to start addressing this. We're going to tell a whole big story here to address it. Okay, I'm not going to go back and do point by point on him. I could pick him apart like a damn leftover turkey carcass after Thanksgiving, like you make the soup out of. Again, we don't have time for everything. So here we go. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, and Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray. Okay, it's no secret that the likes of Attorney General Eric Holder and his inept and equally corrupt replacement, Loretta Lynch, President Obama and Al Sharpton have been drawing upon these cases to foster racial unrest in this country. While others with similar dimensions and often more tragic circumstances remain ignored, scores of members in Congress join this barking choir as well. But why are they driving these cases at all? These are not just altruistic players. They have an agenda. In the aftermath of the chaos of riots and violent mass protests that take over cities across the nation, a clearer picture is beginning to emerge. Stick with me. This gets important. All the justified anger over police abuse, when there is police abuse, isn't about equal justice or even equal rights. What it's really about is more power for the federal government. This is exactly what the Democrats want. This is exactly what they're driving people to with their divisive statements and their divisive actions. Okay? Don't believe me? Let's rewind a little bit. Okay? Stories of police abuse have become so widespread that the streets are filling with protests railing against its most publicized cases. Yet who gave the police the tanks, the weapons, and the military equipment? The Pentagon did under its surplus program. Who trained the police to regard every individual as a potential terrorist in America? Homeland Security did, and the FBI issued the definitions. They wrote the propaganda, they put out the memos, and conducted the training exercises. Who funded the police to increase arrests and fill the jails with nonviolent offenders? Washington and their federal grants, that's who. These grants are paid off to local police departments when they exactly do that. The current Justice Department and White House administration want more control over local police forces and ultimately, and most dangerously, to form a nationalized police force, in addition to federally controlling your local law enforcement officers. They are trying to change things, once again, through a popular groundswell in a series of civil rights lawsuits. Okay? And we're all going to tie this back to the 10th Amendment. I know I mentioned that at the start. We're going to get there. Trust me. And forgive my hiccups, but I'm trying. There was a report in the St. Louis Dispatch a little while after the Ferguson shooting. Excuse me again. So spurred by the Ferguson shooting and other recent cases of deadly encounters involving police, Congress, in its final hours of work for the year, passed legislation requiring states to report deaths of people arrested or detained by police to the Attorney General. This measure requires states that receive federal aid for crime control, law enforcement assistance, and other law programs to report on a quarterly basis the death of anyone in police custody. It imposes penalties for states that don't comply. Okay? The case has already been made by Godfather Politics, and if you don't know Godfather Politics, go check them out. Great website, good information. That this data reporting legislation is a means to an end to use evidence of systematic racism in police departments to in turn justify federal reform where it doesn't belong. Okay, why doesn't it belong? We'll get there. Ultimately, the U.S. could even see a national police force using the leverage of federal aid money to establish control. Something to consider. Is this the dream that Martin Luther King had? What about other civil rights leaders? What about our founders? While I would never presume to speak for any of these people, I do humbly submit my opinion based on their writings, their speeches, the papers that they wrote, and how they lived their lives, that they are all rolling in their graves at the very suggestion of such a police force. In typical fashion, and this is how the feds always co-opt the states, money. One could just picture the feds saying, "You didn't actually think there would be no strings attached to our money, did you?" To the politically uninitiated, this may not seem like a big deal. And to an uber-trained eye, this may seem a little bit tinfoily. But to people that are just paying attention and looking at the facts, you can see this. This is just another step toward their goal. They say all we want to do is compile some data, crunch some numbers, that's all. It's not like this data would ever show us tendencies towards racism. That's not what we're actively looking for as an excuse for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division to sue you into submission. No, we'll let you decide the outcome of the inevitable civil rights lawsuit against your city's police department. But those behind this scheme must maintain this level of hatred toward local police to achieve their goal. Everything else has been nationalized, so why not police? As per the Communist Manifesto and Alinsky's tactics, this national police force can't happen all at once. Nobody would ever accept that. Like all leftist ideologies, it must be incremental and opportunist. The architects of this plan must be prepared to react when a good crisis arrives so as not to waste the opportunity. Opportunities just like Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Trayvon Martin. A national police force, before that becomes visible, oppressive, in a SS force imposed across the country kind of way, it will rear its ugly head from the inside out, using more federal money to address the problem, reaction, solution at hand, using federal policy to establish federal control over police illegally. The trend is already underway, and with dangerous consequences too. Consider what's already happened under Bill Clinton's crime bill and Bush's Patriot Act. President Clinton instituted a sweeping federal initiative to reform police, famously pledging to put an additional 100,000 police on the streets by the year 2000 through his COPS program, or the Community-Oriented Policing Services, launched in 1994. In theory, it addressed some of the same problems that Obama, Holder, and the Ferguson case were attempting to address. Following the 1991 Rodney King beating and subsequent riots, Justice Department began to use pattern or practice lawsuits against police departments. Only a few short years later, the COPS program used federal dollars and the guise of quote-unquote community policing to grant huge gifts to thousands of police departments. And with it, that's right, the strings attached. And with that, a backlash of the surface intentions of the program. Many departments that have gotten large amounts of money from the COPS program, such as New York and Chicago, have been plagued with persistent complaints of excessive force against suspects, the opposite of what community policing promises to provide. At best, the COPS program was a misguided solution to crime, as brought to light by Slate Magazine, another great site that I did some research on. Violent crime in the U.S. peaked in 1994, just when COPS was introduced. And murder was already falling by 1991 before the program started. In 1999, an investigation by the Chicago Tribune that looked at the nation's 50 largest police departments found, quote-unquote, no correlation between the growth in the number of officers and crimes rate since 1993. But of course, it's not about declining crime. Hell no, it never is. It's about centralized power. That is the pinnacle of the narrative. The Heritage Foundation made the point that the unconstitutional concentration of federal power under the COPS program was seriously infringing upon the separation of powers framed in the Constitution. They're exactly right. This is where the 10th Amendment comes in, folks. If you don't know it, look it up while I'm reading my notes here, because this you're going to absolutely get a big kick in the pants out of. To break it down more simply, federal grant programs that fund the routine, day-to-day functions of state and local law enforcement are of questionable constitutionality. When Congress subsidizes local law enforcement in this manner, it effectively reassigns to the federal government the powers and responsibilities that fall squarely within the 10th Amendment constitutional authority of state and local governments. The federal government was intentionally understood to never have a general police power. All powers not enumerated in the Constitution shall fall to the responsibility of the state and local governments per the 10th Amendment. There is nothing in the Constitution about a federal police force. It was left out on purpose. The founders knew how dangerous that would be. Reuters published a report warning of the unintended consequences of the Justice Department, quote unquote, fixing what is wrong with Ferguson and the other cases. In the aftermath of the deaths of Michael Brown in Ferguson and Eric Garner in Staten Island, protesters across the nation were looking to Washington for action and answers. Their look was in the wrong direction. They should have been looking to their state capitals. While arguing that the federal government can and should influence changes in criminal justice policy, Reuters also points out the drastic damage that has already been done. One piece of federal legislation, the 1994 Crime Bill, has played a pivotal role in the incarceration epidemic. The law, which was designed to reduce crime, gave states $9 billion to pass laws that would increase time spent behind bars. The result, however, was an explosion in the state prison populations that has made the United States the world's largest jailer. The United States holds 5% of the world's population, but 25% of its prisoners. This has immense fiscal, economic, and social consequences. Each prisoner costs taxpayers on average $30,000 a year. And inmates with criminal records, even for minor offenses, face significant challenges re-entering society. Now, I'm not playing a sad violin for these people. They're criminals. They did the crime. They should do time. Okay? There's something else that we need to talk about here, though, because as Mr. Butterfield, in his eloquent little speech, was so good at bringing up, that this affects blacks more than other races. Well, there's truth in that, but he doesn't discuss why. And here's the why, people. Here's the why. The racial disparities among the prisoners are vast also. 1 in 3 black men on average can expect to spend time behind bars in their lifetime. This disparity lies squarely in the fact that black men also commit a disproportionate percentage of crime versus the percentage of the population that they make up in this country. Today, the federal government annually sends states and cities more than $4 billion. What the federal government chooses to fund, however, creates incentives for local police. For example, Washington's funding priorities have supported mass incarceration by concentrating on the number of arrests and seizures police make rather than tabulating the number of offenders diverted to mental health or drug treatment programs. The federal government now, with the left hand, is scolding the police for their shameful examples of excessive force and civil rights violations, while with their right hand, giving these departments new toys, gift money, and pushing the ideology to regard average citizens as mortal enemies and potential terrorists. In some form, the creation of a national police force is already underway, and while not yet visible to the public eye, it already doesn't look pretty. In steps towards that end, the federal government has drastically increased their joint efforts and shared visions with local and state police ever since the wake of 9/11. The creation of Homeland Security as the overreaching umbrella organization. Expensive and technologically advanced fusion centers have been set up across the country to share information up and down the chains of command and across jurisdictions, allowing local as well as private police to use federal data not only to track criminals, but to profile individuals before they become suspects, even without warrants, including political activists and community groups. And if you're conservative, you can just double that. Easy. More recently, the use of stingray technology and other forms of extrajudicial cell phone data collection has been used controversially by local police and other entities. And these new toys have been given to departments by the FBI under the Justice Department with the condition of oversight and training by the feds. A Justice Department presentation on COPS, the COPS program, identified how increasingly the approximately 18,000 local departments are entering into private-public partnerships with more than 2 million private security/police forces and the 90,000 federal law enforcement officials in a quote-unquote shared vision that includes plenty of shared data and power. Folks, this is real. It is happening. You can think my tinfoil's wrapped too tight. I'm telling you now, It's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. Why is it going to continue to happen? Because it doesn't matter which one of the two buffoons wins this coming up election, because they're both going to continue these programs. They've indicated as much already. I will double down on my statement that I made months ago, that out of 315 million American citizens, we end up with a heartless, American-hating harlot and an authoritarian asshole for finalists for the most powerful presidency on the globe. We can do better, America. We deserve better. And I know that Mr. Producer doesn't have it queued up, but he has a great statement or a great sound clip of his favorite old lady saying that this is not how it works. It's not how any of this works. Well, it shouldn't be anyway. Unfortunately, that's how it's shaken out right now.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Thank you. I needed the laugh. Look, we can do better. We deserve better. We have to do a better job of making the blind and the ignorant, and yes, even the stupid, there's some we can fix. We have to do a better job of getting them on board to a realistic, ideally conservative path. We don't all have to agree on 100% of things. We don't, okay? We just need to have real conservatism. Bottom of the hour, folks, and I've only covered one topic. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about why they're hypocrites in D.C. that are screaming for all this reform, and we'll talk about some other things too after that. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Oh, but ain't that America? For you and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby.
Let's see, 27 pages of notes typed up for this week's show, and we've made it through 1/3 of them. Yeah, we're not going to make it through everything, but that's okay. Here's something I bet you didn't know. Somehow, the shooting of an unarmed white man by police isn't drawing any attention from the mainstream media.
Does not compute. Does not compute. Does not compute.
Exactly. It does not compute. Why doesn't it not compute? Or why does it not compute? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. And you can capitalize the narrative, because it's becoming a proper noun these days. Unlike the shootings of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, both of who were armed, one of which illegally, the other one I don't know about yet, which have created yet another firestorm, complete with accusations of police racism, the media is ignoring the death of Dylan Noble, a 19-year-old white man who was shot and killed by police on June 25th. According to Fresno, California police, they responded to a report that a man was walking around with a rifle. Spotting a speeding truck, they tried to accost the driver, Noble. Instead, he fled and led the police on a half-mile chase. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Police tell you to stop, you stop. If you don't, you get what you get. That's a lawful order. Noble finally entered a gas station parking lot. Police asserted that he kept his hands hidden and made a conscious effort to conceal one hand behind his back and then into his waistband as he exited the truck and walked away from officers, according to a press release from Fresno police. Police said Noble muttered that he hated his life, reversed direction, and walked back toward the police, prompting them to shoot him 4 times. A witness standing roughly 100 feet away videotaped the incident for 26 seconds. The video shows 2 shots being fired. Noble appears to already be on the ground near or underneath his truck. There was a 14-second gap in between the 2 shots in the video. Police body cameras also filmed the incident, but the department will not release it to the public as of yet, with an ongoing investigation. Upon further investigation on the scene, it was revealed that Noble was unarmed. Noble's parents have hired lawyers for a prospective lawsuit against the police, have retained attorneys who were looking at the possibility of suing the police department. Fresno Police Chief Jerry Dyer pointed out that the video does not show what preceded the shots, police issuing commands to Noble for over a minute as he ignored them and made motions as though he was armed, Dyer said. When he gets within about 12 feet of the officers, he makes the statement, "I hate my effing life." And then he quickly starts to pull his hand out when the officer fires 2 rounds and shoots him. Although the witness video is inconclusive as to what happened prior to the shooting, Dyer said body cam footage from about 10 to 12 feet away was more comprehensive, saying that happened twice, where he deliberately raised his shirt with the left hand and reached with his right hand underneath his shirt to the waistband. The officers at that point believed he was trying to retrieve a firearm, and they fired. Dyer explained the reason for the for the department for them being reluctant to release the video. The ongoing investigation, he added, I believe it explains so much, but I believe it is premature. I don't want to taint any potential witnesses, he said. The video could be released in the next 2 months. He concluded that he asked the FBI and the U.S. Attorney General's office to conduct their own investigations, and they have agreed. But once again, where's the outcry? You know, there's nobody protesting in the streets. There's nobody talking about killing cops over this. Why? I mean, if it's good for one, it's good for all, right? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because these people are civilized. Now, I'm not saying that everybody out there protesting is uncivilized. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But if you're out there calling for the murder of police, if you're out there chanting, fry the pigs like bacon, yeah, you're uncivilized. You are the problem. You are not the solution. You are the nail, not the hammer. You are the bug, not the windshield. So, that's where that all stems from. Now, we're going to talk about our illustrious Barack. And let's just go ahead and say Barry. Who cares, right? Barry instead of President Obama. I'll reverse your hashtag out there because I don't give a damn. Barack Obama called on Sunday for greater tolerance, respect, and understanding from police officers toward the people they take an oath to protect, as well as from individuals who think the police are too heavy-handed and intolerant, particularly toward people of color. I am so sick of hearing about, people of color, people. You know what? I'm a person of color. I am half white. When the police ask me to do something, which has happened on occasion, I do it. Why do I do it? I do it happily because I know they're out there making everybody safer in what they do. I'm not blind to what they're doing, but I know I've done nothing wrong, so I have nothing to worry about. I comply. They thank me. I go on my way. Now, Obama claims that he'd like to listen to all sides, and he would like all sides to listen to each other. It was the fourth straight day that he's commented on a series of distressing events back home while he's in Europe. The fatal shootings by police of black men in Louisiana and Minnesota, and a sniper attack that killed 5 police officers and wounded 7 in Dallas. I think that was actually 8. But anyway, the president alluded to the controversial Black Lives Matter protests against police brutality that have occurred across the country. Defending the movement, he defended this movement that calls for the murder of police. And they do. They can say what they want to say. And there may be 5 or 10 people at the very top of this organization that stand up and say, we do not advocate that. But every group that's out there marching in the streets is calling for it. You're not fooling anybody. But Obama calls this crucial to the preservation of free speech. He says one of the great things about America is that individual citizens and groups of citizens can petition their government, can protest, can speak truth to power. And that is sometimes messy and controversial. Messy as in dead police. Controversial as in dead police. But because of that ability to protest and engage in free speech, America over time has gotten better. We've all benefited from that, he said. He mentioned other contentious movements. Now, this is the best part. This is where he makes some of the most ludicrous statements of his entire administration. Okay? He says, other contentious movements that occurred throughout nation's history, comparing them to recent protests. He said the abolition movement was contentious. The effort for women to get the right to vote was contentious and messy. There were times when activists might have engaged in rhetoric that was overheated and occasionally counterproductive. But the point was to raise issues so that we as a society could grapple with them. Okay, stop right here, because just reading his words again is turning my dinner over in my stomach. Okay? There is nothing common about these movements. Neither the women's suffrage movement nor the abolition movement called for the murdering of peace officers. They did not call for violence against law enforcement. That disqualifies them from being a protest movement. Now, you want to engage in free speech? Man, free speech. I served in the military for 10 years, okay? You know what true free speech is? True free speech is taking the microphone, having your say, and then handing the microphone to somebody that believes exactly the opposite and allow them to speak their beliefs without interrupting them, and then work back and forth. That is free speech. Now, they did pass some laws that limit what is considered free speech and what is considered dangerous speech. You know, if you're putting somebody else in danger with your speech, fire in the theater. Okay? But I don't want to get too far off track here because we're already going to be short on time. So I want to make it clear that Black Lives Matter is not anywhere close to being on level with the abolition or women's suffrage or the civil rights movement. It's not on par with the anti-war movement during Vietnam. Where it does draw some similarities to, though, is the union movement. There was a lot of violence in the union movement. But again, that is not a peaceful protest. And Obama said that what he thinks we're seeing now is just a long-standing tradition, part of that tradition. He noted, however, that violence against police by anyone concerned about fairness in the criminal justice system does, quote, a disservice to the cause. Not to mention makes them a criminal. He repeated that the vast majority of U.S. police officers are doing a good job, but said rhetoric that fails to recognize that will do little to rally allies to support efforts to change a system that is broadly recognized as being biased against minorities, whether it's true or not. I vote not, as a minority. Maintaining a truthful and serious and respectful tone is going to help mobilize American society to bring about real change, Obama said. See, he's ginning up the old community organizer tactics now. He gets everybody fired up and gets them doing exactly what he wants, and then he tries to step in to be the voice of reason and calm. Barry also called for the cooperation on behalf of law enforcement. He said, and here's his quote, "I would hope that police organizations are also respectful of the frustrations that people in these communities feel and not just dismiss these protests and these complaints as political correctness." Barry, nobody is going to mistake these protests as political correctness. Nobody has. And again, you're raising a straw man to rail against. Dallas has one of the more diverse police forces in the United States, and it's made steps to improve its relationship with the black community long before even federal dollars started flowing into it. But that didn't make much difference to the 5 officers that were marching alongside the protesters to make sure that both they and others were safe in the general public. It didn't make a difference at all. Obama said it's in the interests of police officers that their communities trust them. Actually, Mr. President, you got it wrong. It's in the interest of the communities to trust their police officers. After all, these are people that go through training and put their lives on the line to help these communities. They don't know what beat they're going to be assigned to when they make it through the academy and come to a police station. You know, it could be a place that they were afraid to walk through as a person growing up. It could be a place where they know they're not welcome. You know, standing here defending the protesters, Mr. President, you're a disgrace. You're an absolute disgrace. Now, what else do we have firing up these beautiful people out there? Oh, yeah. We got this guy, Reverend Curtis Gatewood. He's a field director for the NAACP's North Carolina branch and former second vice president for the North Carolina NAACP State Conference. He wrote on Facebook that the Dallas shooter, Micah Johnson, the disgrace to the uniform, was defenseless and that he was lynched. He said, "Yes, I'm coming to the defense of the defenseless." That includes Micah Johnson, who has been accused of shooting about 12 officers, Gatewood wrote on his Facebook page. Gatewood is not confident of Johnson's guilt, saying even if Micah was carrying a gun, that in of itself does not prove he murdered the police officers. Reverend, when they had him cornered in the garage and were trying to negotiate with him and he kept shooting at them, that's a pretty good indicator. Now, ballistics will do the job of matching the bullets. That's not a problem. But, sir, you don't shoot at police officers. You just don't. Gatewood then took to Facebook on Monday to describe Johnson's killing as a murder by police. He said, "Make no mistake, by taking this black suspect and demonizing and using a killer robot to blow him up in this unprecedented and barbaric manner and without a trial in a court of law is the truest and most literal example of a high-tech lynching," he wrote. Reverend, you're ignorant. You are absolutely ignorant. And I'm going to be reaching out to Reverend Gatewood. I want to try to bring him on a show in the near future. I don't know if he'll come on, but I'm going to try to track this guy down and see if he'd be willing, because I'd love to have a discussion with him. Now, one day after the shooting, Gatewood also wrote, "Let me say this to all people who love justice. We do not know what happened to those police officers who were shot in Dallas. Actually, you do know because you just said what happened to them. I do not believe or trust what is said or concluded by media and the police. If there is a video of this, Micah Johnson saying, 'I want to kill white people, especially white police officers,' Gatewood wants to see it. His website states that his website states that he has received multiple NAACP awards, including Branch of the Year and President of the Year." Well, doesn't that just make him the darling of the NAACP? Again, I will be reaching out to Reverend Gatewood and invite him onto the program. We'll see if he comes on or not. Stay tuned for that. Now, when reading the Declaration of Independence, it's easy to focus on the sweeping language of the second paragraph and skip over the names and mutual pledge of the signers at its conclusion. Though the principles enunciated in its opening paragraph, such as the self-evident truth that all men are created equal, provide the moral and philosophical foundation on which our country rests, it is important to acknowledge that declaring principles alone secures nothing. Principles need to be enforced by individuals who have the habits of character necessary to fight for them and perhaps even die for them if need be. In a time where talk of rights dominates our political discourse, a focus on duties is indispensable in order to teach citizens the responsibilities they owe toward each other and their posterity. The signers' mutual pledge to themselves to sacrifice their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor for the cause of independence shows that these men took seriously their duties to the people of the new nation. A look at the historical record will show this to be beyond dispute. Of the 56 men who signed the Declaration, 12 fought in battles as members of state militias. 5 were captured and imprisoned during the Revolutionary War. 17 lost property as a result of British raids, and 5 lost their fortunes in helping the Continental Army and the state militias battle the Redcoats. We're going to explore some of those sacrifices in the next few minutes here, and we're going to take a look at who these founders really were. The men that signed the Declaration of Independence that sacrificed so much for this country. Some of them you've never heard of, and we're going to concentrate on them. We're going to start with Thomas Hayward Jr. of South Carolina. He was a signer of both the Declaration and the Articles of Confederation. He drew the ire of the British when, as a circuit court judge, he presided over the trial of several loyalists who were found guilty of treason. The prisoners were summarily executed in full view of British troops. In 1779, he joined the South Carolina militia as a captain of artillery. His compatriot in the South Carolina delegation, Edward Rutledge, also served in the state militia. At age 26, Rutledge was the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence. After returning home from attending the Second Continental Congress in 1777, he joined the militia as captain of an artillery battalion. Both Hayward and Rutledge aided their country in the Battle of Port Royal Island, where they helped General Moultrie defeat British Major William Gardiner and his troops. Arthur Middleton, the last of the South Carolina delegation who served in the militia, took up arms against the British during the siege of Charleston in 1780. His fellow signers, Hayward and Rutledge, fought in that battle as well. Upon the surrender of Charleston, all 3 men were captured by the British and were sent to prison in St. Augustine, Florida. which was reserved for people the British thought were particularly dangerous. They were held there for almost a year before being released. En route to Philadelphia for a prisoner exchange in July 1781, Hayward almost drowned. He survived his fall overboard by clinging to the ship's rudder until he could be rescued. During the British occupation of Charleston, Commandant Nesbitt Balfour ordered the seizure of many estates in Charleston, including those owned by Hayward and Middleton. During his imprisonment, Hayward's wife died at home, and his estate and property were heavily damaged. Rutledge's estate was left intact, but his family had to sell many of their belongings in order to make the trip to Philadelphia to reunite with him after his release. Middleton's estate was left relatively untouched, but his collection of rare paintings was destroyed during the British occupation of his home. Thomas Nelson, Jr. from the Commonwealth of Virginia was appointed to the position of Brigadier General and Commander-in-Chief of the Virginia Militia by Governor Patrick Henry in August of 1777. At that time, it was thought that the British would be making a full-scale invasion of the state. Nelson was able to muster only a few hundred men to defend Virginia, but the British instead decided to attack Philadelphia. Nelson inherited a vast family fortune, much of which he used to support the American effort. He personally paid for the return journey home of 70 troops he had led to meet the British in Philadelphia during the summer of 1778. In the spring of 1780, Nelson signed his name to a loan for $2 million that was needed to purchase provisions for the French fleet that was coming to America's aid in the war. As then governor of Virginia, during the Battle of Yorktown, he ordered American troops to fire upon his mansion, which he had been commandeered by General Cornwallis and his men. I want you to think about that for a minute. How many of you out there that even have $2 million would be willing to sign it over to somebody that was helping you fight for your right to be free? That's sacrifice, folks. Richard Stockton was a member of the New Jersey delegation. His estate was commandeered by the British for use as a headquarters. As they left, British troops burned all his personal effects, including his library, private papers, furniture, and clothes. Though Stockton was in hiding at the time, he ultimately did not escape capture. A traitor led the British to his position in November 1776. He was held captive in Amboy, New Jersey, and was then sent to New York City, where he was imprisoned in a jail reserved for common criminals. Incensed by his treatment, Congress worked with British General William Howe to obtain his release. George Walton, because of his small build and stature, was thought to be the youngest of the signers of the Declaration, but he was actually in his mid-30s. He hailed from Georgia and served as colonel in the 1st Regiment of the State Militia in 1778. During the siege of Savannah, a cannonball broke his leg, which led to his being captured. He was held captive for 9 months and was released in the early fall of 79 in a prisoner exchange for a British Navy captain. And I'm sadly out of time, folks. We are top of the hour. These men are important, and we're going to continue this next week because there's more of them I want to read about. As always, stay tuned to K98 Talk tonight. It's the best prime time you're going to hear anywhere. Tomorrow night, get Dr. A and Lou. You get JD and Stacy. You get Rick and Jen. I'm telling you, it's just a smorgasbord here at K98. I'm your friendly neighborhood Grouch. I'm going to thank you for being here. God bless you. And hope to see you next week. Take care. Peace.
We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag because we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. We never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans.